Welcome, and I'm so glad to see everyone here. It's always heartwarming to see people who are interested in activities that are beneficial to our health and to the earth too. Tonight we're talking about global warming, and we're going to learn 3 tricks. 2 of them have to do with sequestration. Does anybody know what that word means? Excellent. Okay, 1 person. Okay, so that's what we want to do. We're going to educate tonight. And I can tell you right now that sequestration has to do with taking carbon out of the atmosphere and returning it back into the soil. And that's what we're trying to optimize tonight. And the 3rd trick has to do with equipment. So we'll just move through this, and maybe you'll get some ideas about how you can do that in your own yard. So I'll let you read. Okay, cool. There we are. Those are great photos.
Yeah.
Especially the one on the right.
Yes.
You want to see that. So carbon sequestration is a 2-step process. It's taking carbon out of the air, and the second part of that process is putting it back in the soil. And here we have a reminder of photosynthesis, which we all had in high school, I'm sure.
Would you talk us through that?
And I will. We have carbon dioxide in the air. And trees do photosynthesis, or anything with green leaves. Solar energy is available. The tree or whatever the plant is takes carbon dioxide out of the air, combines it with water from the soil or from the rain. We have photosynthesis, and that plant is able to change it to where there is glucose or sugars or these compounds and oxygen. The oxygen goes in the air, which is what we want. We want oxygen in our air, right? Okay, so notice the glucose. That's what we're going to talk about. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. And here we have a tree, and this is a great image because trees not only have money in their leaves, but they have down here. Let's go ahead and read first. Why don't you read what that says there? So what most people don't realize is that there's all of this busyness going on underneath the surface of the soil. We tend to think that this is dirt. If you talk to an organic farmer, they say, that's not dirt, that's soil. We tend to think of it as being just kind of dead material, of just sand or rocks or whatever, and it's not. It's very active and it's very alive. And when you think about the tree has all this money that it makes from photosynthesis, and it takes that cash down there, and this is like the tree's shopping mall. It's like the supermarket shopping, super fantastic place for the tree where they can get all the other things that it needs. Nutrients, bacteria, and organic farmers again like to talk about fungi, and they like to talk about mycorrhizae fungi, because mycorrhizae will go for miles and connect through the soil, and this tree can get information on a diseased tree far, far away through that mycorrhizae. So that's really exciting when you think about all that life that goes on. Okay, so we also want to make note that the roots open up the soil. Okay? And here we have what's called the soil food web. We have the plants up there. You see the green grass, and we have organic material, which can come from a number of sources. It can be the grass clippings that come down. It can be dead roots. It can be chopped up leaves. It can be animal poops. It can be all kinds of things there, right? It can be the It can be your compost, it can be all kinds of things. And we have nematodes and fungi and bacteria eating that, okay? And then eating that are the anthropoids and the nematodes and the protozoa, okay? And they eat that other stuff and then they poop that. And then these anthropoids and the nematodes, they eat and they poop that out, and the same with the birds and the animals. And all this adds more and more organic material to the soil and gives health to the plants that grow in it.
We are not alone.
That's right. That's right. There's a whole life system going on there.
The whole
It's
universe.
equally or more complex than the human body and what's going on above the soil. Okay, and here's just an example. You know, so you see these bacteria, these fungi, they're busy at work. Working on that stuff to get it ready to go back into the soil, okay? And think about what would happen if we didn't have that going on. A tree would fall down and it would just stay there, right, forever, as it is, right? But instead it's got all this bacterial action going on. So we've been taught that our grass needs constant fertilizer. This is only because we've killed all the organic material in the soil with pesticides. So I had a woman ask me once, she said, you know, I got lawn service for my lawn, and she said at first they said they would come once a year and put fertilizer and pesticides on there, and then mow it. And then she said a few years later, then they said, well, we're going to come twice a year. And then a few years later, she said, well, we really need to take care of your lawn 4 times a year. And now I'm seeing 6 times a year, or constant pesticides and constant fertilizer to the lawn. And that's because all that organic material under the surface of the lawn has been killed off, and there is no way that lawn can survive without being sort of fed constantly. Kind of like IV feed to that grass, right? It's getting straight to the bloodstream, right? It doesn't have to do any work, it just goes straight to the bloodstream.
And is that because there are pesticides in the application of the grass seed that you pay somebody to?
Right.
Okay.
So that all that stuff that we were looking at before that's going on underneath the soil is dead, right?
Yeah.
It's gone from having organic material in it to being just like, kind of like sand, right?
Yeah.
So here we have, and it's because we've been taught that there's something wrong if we have a few bare spots in our lawn or a couple dandelions. But believe it or not, there are families out there that want to buy a house that's not been drenched in pesticides. In fact, there are a lot of families out there. And in fact, they will pay a nice price, I've learned, for a nice piece of property that has not been manipulated in that way.
That's a good selling point for
It is.
people who need a selling point.
Yeah, right.
Your house
It's
close.
a good, yeah, it's a quick
Yeah.
way to sell, yeah.
Uh,
So here's what we give up when we go to this lawn treatment business. Here's what we give up. We give up those worms, you know? The worms don't want to go on a treated lawn that's been treated with pesticides because there's nothing to eat there. There's no bugs, there's no worms, there's nothing to eat. The birds can't and they can even get sick, the birds themselves, from that. We go, you know, we lose our little violets. We lose our bunnies. Look at that. You might say, oh gosh, I don't want clover in my lawn, right? Oh, I got clover in my lawn. Well, look at that little bunny. He is so happy to have that clover there, that yummy, nice clover. And he just chows down on it. He loves it. And dandelions, dandelions are fun. They're a pretty yellow flower. We've been taught that they are not acceptable.
Yeah.
But really, Okay, so I recommend that if you want to check your soil and see what's going on there and how to manage your lawn better, that you get a soil test and you see if it needs lime or if it needs organic material. But a lot of people don't want to do that. They just don't have the time to do it or whatever. So here's a quickie way you can test your soil. You just get a shovel, you dig down into the soil a bit, and go down like 6 or 8 inches, okay? And fill up a little yogurt container, okay? And you know, if it would be good on a rainy day, or you could even put some water into it and pour it out again. So, and fill up a container with some potting soil and put it next, okay? If it's a treated lawn that's been dependent on lawn service for a period of time, it will dry out in 1 day. You'll have to water it again.
Mm.
It'll be completely gone. And you'll compare that to soil or potting soil, and it'll stay damp for a long time. So that's one way to look at it. We'll look at the next slide.
What makes that happen?
Well, because this has organic material in it, and it holds water, right? And that holds water. This is more like sand here. It's the typical garden, organic garden would have 5% organic material. It's got manure in it. It's got plant debris in there. It's got roots. It's got parts from previous plants that were in there. Whereas the treated lawn, it's just going to feel like sand. Sometimes people say, gee, you know, I don't understand why this area of soil is not, this area of my lawn is not growing grass. And I go over and put the shovel into it, and the shovel will only go down a couple inches because I've hit rocks. And that's because when that house was built, the builder did a quickie job, put 2 inches of topsoil on, and then walked it, and then had like sod put on there, right? From there, and now that has to be continually maintained, rather than the grass really needs more than a couple inches of topsoil. So here is a kind of a fun slide, and I don't know if you can read it or not, but up here at the top it says bacteria, 100 million to 1 billion. And what you probably can't see is that little line there going up and down. It says per teaspoon of soil. Poof. So in 1 teaspoon of soil, we have 100 million to 1 billion bacteria. We have several yards of fungi. We mentioned mycorrhizal fungi. Protozoa, several thousand. Nematodes, 10 to 20 bacterial feeders, and that is just in 1 teaspoon, okay? Here we have arthropods up to 100 per square foot, earthworms 5 to 30 earthworms, more in soils with high organic material. Okay, so that's typical agricultural soil, and then we have other comparisons there. And all these guys, they work for free. They do their job. They like to do that, right? As long as you give them a chance. Okay, and so here I just want to advise you too that that when you get advertisement, that the organic food standards only apply to food. Sometimes you see in the store organic shampoo, organic toothpaste. Food standards do not apply. But they can use that as long as they can interpret that as they want. Right? In this case, it's been called organically based because it's carbon based, and organic chemistry refers to carbon based products. Okay, so here we have an organic lawn. This lawn has been, not been treated with any fertilizers for 20 years. Here it is last summer in the July drought where we had no rain for 30 days, the entire month of July. And there are some leaves being mowed in. You can mow in one layer of leaves. And since leaves come down gradually, you can do that 3 times. You know, you can mow them in the first time they come down, and then you get more, and then you can do it again. You know, if they're deep, deep leaves, it's a little bit much, but you can see what you can get away with. You know, or you can spread it out with a leaf blower maybe, or you can with a rake. Just throw it around a bit.
But you want to chop it up rather than leave them whole?
Chop it up with the mower, yeah, and it'll just go right down in. So, yeah, and this is totally, you know, like I said, in the drought, and no irrigation there. You know, there's plenty of organic material in the soil there that will hold on to that moisture. Okay, and here we have an electric mower, and built about 1970, and I put that there because we'll get onto that and point out a little bit about some of the equipment that we use on our lawns that's not earth friendly necessarily. Whoops, we're listing a slide. So I just want to say that 2-cycle, I'm not sure if I understand what a 2-cycle motor is, but most lawn mowers and most lawn equipment use a combination of gasoline and oil and are much more highly polluting. So there we have it. This up here is Mountain Laurel, and this is a local field here with native daisies and some other plants in there.
That's basically
Okay.
what our riding arena looks like
Yeah.
now.
It's what?
It was what my riding arena looks like now. It's a meadow in fact, like it just happened like daisy, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's the end there. Thank you.